Crooked special counsel prosecutors today slammed by the defense team for General Michael Flynn, attorneys for the former national security advisor, claiming that the Department of Justice is refusing to share evidence with them and denying them the necessary clearances to access Flynn's records. For the latest on this story, we turn now to Fox Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge.
Greg, this filing from former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn's new legal team amounts to throwing a bomb at special counsel prosecutors, accusing them of gross misconduct, worse than the late Senator Ted Stevens case, where the conviction was dismissed. The link between the Stevens and Flynn case is federal Judge Emmett Sullivan. Nearly 2 years after Flynn pled guilty to lying to federal investigators over his contact with the Russian ambassador, Sullivan wants to go to sentencing. An earlier court filing showed there is still a lot of daylight between Flynn's new legal team and the government. About the only thing they agree on is that Flynn's cooperation in other cases is complete. Also in that filing, Flynn's new legal team said they are being denied security clearances, which they say they need to access classified records, showing to what extent Flynn cleared in advance a December 2015 Moscow trip with his old employer, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then debriefed military intelligence after he was paid $45,000 to attend a Russia media dinner where he sat at the same table as the Russian President Vladimir Putin. That matters because the special counsel report confirmed that Flynn was the subject of a separate and second investigation over his Russia contacts. Flynn's team also says the government has, quote, steadfastly refused to produce the transcripts and recordings of phone calls between Flynn and the Russian ambassador after the 2016 election that underpin the charges against him, as well as the original or first draft of Flynn's FBI interview, which was conducted by anti-Trump agent Peter Strzok. Judge Sullivan has ordered a status conference for September 10th, Greg.
Catherine Herridge. Catherine, thanks very much. Joining me now is Sidney Powell, former federal prosecutor, author, and attorney for former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Sidney, good to see you. Thanks very much. I have your 19-page motion to compel, also requesting that the special counsel prosecutors be held in contempt of court. You accuse them of malevolent conduct, and I suspect you're quite right about this, by hiding evidence that by law they're required to turn over to you and Michael Flynn. What exactly are they withholding and suppressing?
Well, the exact things they're holding and suppressing are outlined in a motion that we're required to file under seal because of a protective order. But we have a significant list of information that we're very concerned about, that we've asked about and asked for earlier, and the government has refused to provide it. Their standard response is there is no, quote, Brady evidence. They've given us more than they're supposed to have given us already. They point to thousands of pages they provided, but as you know, being a lawyer, it's the 1 or 2 or 3 or 50 pages they don't give you that are often the ones that matter.
Right.
What I want to make sure that we find here, Greg, is whatever the truth is. We want the truth. And I don't think we're anywhere near that or finding that yet.
All right. I want to go to page 4 of your motion to compel. You argue that Mueller's prosecutors have been putting, quote, excruciating pressure on him to enter his guilty plea and manipulating or controlling the press to their advantage to extort that plea. How exactly did they do that?
Well, that is something that's going to have to wait further discussion too, but I think once we outline the timeline of all of it, that will become apparent.
Two of Mueller's prosecutors, Andrew Weissman, the notorious Weissman, and Zainab Ahmad. What's amazing to me is, and I've written about this in columns, these are two people on the special counsel team, and yet way back in 2016, they were the part of the Bruce Orr group that was disseminating the phony information in the dossier by Christopher Steele, the anti-Trump fabricated information to the FBI and apparently to others. Doesn't that call into the question not only their trustworthiness as neutral investigators in the Mueller witch hunt, but the legitimacy of that investigation?
It certainly raises a lot of questions that need to be answered. I do not understand how they could have participated in the interactions with Bruce Orr about the Steele dossier, running the back channel between Fusion GPS and the FBI and all of that secretly, when they weren't even in the chain of command in Department of Justice to be involved. So they were part of some kind of small group that was in on all of it, and then they wound up on the special counsel prosecution, and Ms. Ahmad particularly is prosecuting General Flynn.
Yeah, they tainted and contaminated the legitimacy of Robert Mueller's investigation, along with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. 2 weeks ago, prosecutors belatedly handed over 330 pages of evidence in the case to you. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that, just 2 weeks ago they finally coughed this stuff up, and yet at the same time they claim it's not exculpatory information. Are you of the opinion that they are so biased they can't even distinguish exculpatory from inculpatory?
Well, I think as a matter of general principle, dealing with prosecutors as long as I have now, particularly in the last 20 years when the entire standard for conduct of prosecutors seems to have changed, it shouldn't be up to the prosecutor to decide what is exculpatory to the defense. That's why the Supreme Court in Auger said the prosecutors shouldn't tack too close to the wind. If they do, they need to hand it over, because only the defense can really decide what is material and important to the defense. The prosecutors don't know what all the defenses are. I mean, this case really exemplifies everything that's wrong with our criminal justice system and how many reforms are needed to make sure that everyone gets a fair trial. One of the reasons I so applauded Judge Sullivan, and he was the judicial hero of my book, is because he was willing to hold prosecutors to account to produce all the evidence that's favorable to the defense.
You know, all of this arises because Michael Flynn agreed to, under pressure, and he was basically fooled into giving an interview with Peter Strzok and another agent, which is we all now know is Joe Pientka. And the special counsel accused Flynn of lying in that interview, and yet here is the FBI report dated July 19, 2017. We'll put it on the screen. Throughout the interview, Flynn had a very sure demeanor and did not give any indicators of deception. Strzok and redacted FBI agent, which is Pientka, both had the impression at the time that Flynn was not lying or did not think he was lying. How is it possible that Flynn can be charged with lying if the two FBI agents who interviewed him concluded he was not?
I still don't understand that myself, Greg. That's why I need a lot more information.
Are you considering withdrawing the guilty plea?
That is not what I want to see happen here. I'm expecting, frankly, that we find evidence that warrants dismissal of the case for egregious government misconduct. But like I said, I want to know the truth. That's what I want to know first, and I can't even evaluate the validity of the plea until I have all the evidence.
In other words, you want to lay out all of the evidence and then the judge on his own saying, prosecutors on the special counsel team, you were unconscionable, you were unprincipled, you violated the Brady rules, and because of your egregious misconduct, I'm dismissing the case against Flynn. Would that be the optimal result?
That would be the optimal result. The man, I believe, from everything I've seen now, should be completely exonerated.
All right. Sidney Powell, good luck to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Hurricane Dorian is